Jigyasitatmaya tatyo Munevyasa sutadaso Hitvedam nripagangayam Yasyatyada kutobayam. Is that too low? Okay. Jigyasitatmaya tatyo Munevyasa sutadaso Hitvedam nripagangayam Yasyatyada kutobayam. Anyone want to say? Yasitatmaya tatyo Munevyasa sutadaso Hitvedam nripagangayam Yasyatada kutobayam. Jigyasitatmaya tatyo Munevyasa sutadaso Hitvedam nripagangayam Yasyatada kutobayam. Anybody else? Ladies? Yasitatmaya tatyo Munevyasa sutadaso Hitvedam nripagangayam Yasyatada kutobayam. So it's text 28 in the chapter on the birth of Emperor Parikshit. Prabhupada say Parikshit. So I might ask you some questions, so listen to the purport, okay? Oh, wait a minute, shall we do the word meaning? That's nice. Jigyasita, having inquired of. Atma yatatya, right knowledge of one's own self. Munehe, from the learned philosopher. Vyasa Sutat, the son of Vyas. Asau, he. Hitva, quitting. Idam, this material attachment. Nripa, O king. Gangayam, on the bank of the Ganges. Yasyati, will go. Adha, directly. Akutabayam, the life of fearlessness. After inquiring, do you want to read a little bit at a time? Sticks in your mind better. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. The he refers to Maharaj Parikshit, of course, that this is what will happen. He will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Material knowledge means ignorance of the knowledge of one's own self. Philosophy means to seek after the right knowledge of one's own self, or the knowledge of self-realization. Without self-realization, philosophy is dry speculation or a waste of time and energy. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right knowledge of one's own self, and by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one can get free from material attachment and enter into the kingdom of fearlessness. This material world is fearfulness. Its prisoners are always fearful, as within a prison house. In the prison house, no one can violate the jail rules and regulations, and violating the rules means another term for extension of prison life. Similarly, we in this material existence are always fearful. This fearfulness is called anxiety. Everyone in the material life, in all species and varieties of life, is full of anxieties, either by breaking or without breaking the laws of nature. Liberation or mukti means getting relief from these constant anxieties. This is possible only when the anxiety is changed to the devotional service of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us the chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. This is done in the association of a learned philosopher like the self-realized Shukadeva Goswami, the great son of Sri Vyasadeva. Maharaj Parikshit, after receiving warning of his death, took advantage of this opportunity by association with Shukadeva Goswami and achieved the desired result. There is a sort of imitation of this reciting and hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam by professional men, and their foolish audience thinks that they will get free from the clutches of material attachment and attain the life of fearlessness. Such imitative hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is a caricature only, and one should not be misled by such a performance of Bhagavatam Saptaha, undertaken by ridiculous greedy fellows to maintain an establishment of material enjoyment. Prabhupada says it how it is, doesn't he? Ridiculous greedy fellows. Om Gyana Timarandasya Gyanan Jana Shalakaya Chakshran Meditam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and he opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Well, I don't know how adept I will be at shining the torchlight of knowledge on anybody else, but I think it's a nice thing that people say they're giving Bhagavatam class, because you're actually trying to give something. So I may not have heaps of. I don't usually give Bhagavatam class. I'm more a small group person actually. So, but I'll try and give something as an offering to you. So what stood out for me in this purport, and there are many things in it, but. At the beginning, Prabhupada is talking about ignorance and the difference between material knowledge and the search for spiritual knowledge, which can only come by the grace of the great souls and those following in the line of Srila Vyasadeva in our sampradaya. So without that guidance, which actually leads you on the path of self-realization, Prabhupada says it's just a waste of time and energy, dry speculation. So material life is all about material attachment and trying to enjoy and maintaining that, doing whatever you can to maintain that and increase that. And spiritual life, it's amazing because it's the deepest thing you can go for. It's the only thing that's worthwhile, and yet in one way, it's so simple. Srila Prabhupada said one time to Tribhuvanath Prabhu, it's so simple you can miss it. So we're trying to enter into this life of fearlessness. But we've been in the prison house. Prabhupada's talking about the prison house. We've been in the prison house for quite a long time. Now we've been given this opportunity to get out. But, we have quite a fair bit of conditioning from our prison life. Even sometimes when people get out of prison, they can't get used to being free again. And sometimes people become very, very afraid because they're conditioned to fear. Even they have their freedom. Now we've been given our freedom. Srila Prabhupada's given us the life of freedom and the path to go home. Without that gift from Srila Prabhupada, none of us would be here. It might be somewhere else, pursuing some kind of spiritual path. But following Srila Prabhupada means we're following in the footsteps of all the acharyas. And only 500 years previously, Lord Chaitanya appeared and gave us all these instructions about going to the place where there's no fear in the spiritual world. I started looking up a few things, actually. I was kind of quite taken with how many times Prabhupada was mentioning fearful and fearlessness and the prison. I once was a chaplain in a prison, and I'm only going to do this once because I can't just keep putting a sorry on all the time. Yes, people were actually terrified. It's a horrible, horrible life, and it's a great example, it's a great metaphor for the life we're in. You're completely restricted. It's horrible food. Now we have prasadam. Everything's inauspicious. And then you get a few prisoners that try to fake it, they try to be a bit cheeky. But actually everybody is totally restricted. And if we think we're free in the prison house, that's a huge illusion, isn't it? The only way of getting any relief, Prabhupada says, is when that anxiety that we feel in the prison house is changed to the devotional service of the Lord. So what does that mean? What do you think it means, that it's changed? That anxiety is changed to the service of the Lord? Got any thoughts on that? That really impacted on me when I read it. What do you think it means that it's changed? The anxiety's changed to the service of the Lord.
Sometimes there's like the impetus or the idea of an action.
Can you speak up a bit?
Yeah, sometimes there's the impetus or idea of an action, like, oh, I want to give this book to this person. And then there's the fear of like, oh, that's my ego, or I want to drop this piece of information, or share this, or share that, or whatever it is. And to shift it into, like, it's not about me, it's not for me, it's for the benefit of Srila Prabhupada's mission, it's for the benefit of Guru and Gauranga, then the ego gets to soften a little bit, at least, and it's in the mood of service. And then the fear or the anxiety dissipates, and you become empowered by this mood of service to act in a way that, without the mood of service, would be just ego.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the fact that you can transcend anxiety by, offering everything up to Krishna. But there's also anxiety in devotional service. That's what I was thinking. There are many points, obviously, because the anxiety is changed to devotional service. Srimad Bhagavatam gives us a chance to change the quality of anxiety from matter to spirit. So if you think about somehow Prabhupada allowed us to dovetail everything, even whatever your nature is, or even if you feel anxious. Prabhupada was so concerned about the suffering of people in the material world that he undertook that huge journey to America on that ship, on the Jaladuta. It wasn't that he was just thinking, oh, everything's all right, there's nothing to be worried about. He was really, really concerned for the suffering of the fallen souls. And Krishna, Radharani is in anxiety. Vrindadevi is always thinking, how can I make this place beautiful for Krishna? There's a transcendental anxiety to serve and to make everything nice. On a festival day, or on Janmashtami, we don't eat all day. We sometimes get a bit tired, we get a bit worn down. And then there's like thinking of making arrangements for a festival. It's a kind of transcendental anxiety. Prabhupada said you should, rack your brains, think of novel ways to spread this Krishna consciousness. So it's a kind of transcendental anxiety. It's not mundane anxiety, but and in the Shikshastakam we say, that taste always anxious, for which always anxious we are. In the old translation, I used to think it sounded nice, always anxious we are. So we do have a kind of anxiousness to please Krishna. And also, when, as you were saying, we realize the false ego, or we're not acting properly, then we become a little anxious to be relieved of our anartas. And prayer comes out of anxiety, actually. If you think of all the beautiful prayers of Srila Narottam Das, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and particularly Narottam Das, nearly all of his prayers he's lamenting and how anxious he was, how sad and anxious and lamenting that he missed the association of the great devotees who had left before he reached Vrindavan. He had so much anxiety in his pure Krishna consciousness to get to Vrindavan to see Lord Chaitanya's associates. But when he got there, he heard that Srila Rupa Goswami had already left. So anxiety in the material world is like a perverted reflection of transcendental mellows of separation in the spiritual world. And somehow, even in a neophyte stage of life, of spiritual life, we get to dovetail all things that we used for mundane purposes. Our lives transform, and suddenly I remember when I was a brahmacharini, I was so anxious if I didn't get to Mangalati on time. It was like, because you're starting out on a new adventure. You're in a way, you're in uncharted waters. But because of faith, we tread that path, and along the way sometimes we get tripped up because of our conditioning, and then we also feel that kind of anxiety that we're maybe not coming up to the standard that our spiritual master requires, or we're not. So it's a different quality, isn't it? I think, and it's very interesting because one time Srila Prabhupada was praying in front of the deities, and a devotee asked him afterwards, Srila Prabhupada, what were you praying? May I ask what you were praying in front of the deities? And apparently Srila Prabhupada said, I was praying to never fall down. So it's not that necessarily as you make spiritual advancement that you're kind of cocksure, everything's cool, I'm cool. So I was looking at this whole thing of fearlessness, and I made a few notes. I usually drop them on the floor and My glasses fall off, but I'll try and behave. So I had the core of this purport I was thinking is, where is shelter? So, because of fearfulness, where is shelter? And where is that kingdom of fearlessness? So I already said some things about that. How we get to dovetail our anxiety and our fearlessness becomes abated just by being engaged, isn't it? Just by being engaged, everything. And just by chanting, immediately everything's transformed. I don't know how you are when you chant your rounds, but it takes me quite a few rounds before, it starts flowing a little bit. And then just after a certain amount of rounds, your consciousness is totally different. So everything is transformed by what Srila Prabhupada has given. And then we're following the process, but we're constantly in training. Just like Srila Prabhupada still praying that he won't fall down. So we can never be thinking that we should feel safe, we should feel confident, as it says in Nectar of Instruction. We should always have confidence in the mercy of the Lord. Talking about confidence, really it's confidence in Krishna, that he will protect me and take care of me and help me on this path. But still, we're in training. And Prabhupada's created such a wonderful framework for us. First of all, of course, he's given us all those wonderful books. And then we have so many wonderful speakers who are giving us understanding. Radha Vinod Prabhu's there, asked him for a blessing because he's such a good teacher. He was too embarrassed to give it me. But I know he's a well-wisher, So training, that's very important. And it's Prabhupada. When I was reading different things about fearlessness, and there was practically the same 3 slokas coming up all the time that Prabhupada mentioned. And I thought that was really interesting how Prabhupada, he repeats things over and over again. That's training, I've never had children, but I see people, they have to over and over again. You have to keep training. No, that's where you go to the toilet. This is how you do it. Don't do it there. Or all the things you have to teach a young child. Over and over again. So we have this beautiful schedule, which is actually based on Krishna's daily schedule, all the things we do. And we have to do it every day as part of our training. If we don't do it every day, then we will be in anxiety. So this is what keeps us up above that, the mundane world. So Krishna gets up early, we get up early. And he says his prayers, and he goes through the whole thing, and we go through our prayers. And then he gets dressed by Mother Yashoda. And then we come to see how he's been dressed. And if you have deities at home, then you do that at home. Prabhupada says there's no difference, You follow the schedule wherever you are. If you can come, on the days you can come and see beautiful Radha Gopinath, always so beautifully dressed, and he always has such exquisite garlands. And it's so enlivening. As soon as you see the Lord, then you're immediately, again, you're in his daily pastime. And all his friends come to see him, and then they go, and Krishna has something to eat, and we have our prasadam after our morning program. So everything is geared around Krishna's life, Krishna's pastimes. Even we're in the material world, Prabhupada's created a life for us where everything is geared around remembering Krishna or following that schedule. And Prabhupada said, whatever you're doing here, that's what you'll be doing in the spiritual world. We'll just carry on from here. So we're constantly in training for when we can eventually go back to Krishna. And that's a real promise. And Krishna says, I promise you this because you are my very dear friend, he says to Arjuna. And so many times Krishna says, you will come to me, I promise you this. Mamana bhavamad bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. He says that if you always, when I was a new devotee, I was better at remembering things than I am now. But even then, to remember the slokas, I used to sing them. So I used to sing, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. In this way you will surely come to me. And I was, just new in Krishna consciousness, and it was such a comforting thing to be able to know that Krishna's given us this promise and that we should have confidence in this promise. And that alone sustains us. So the three, I won't go on to those three slokas right now, but I'm just thinking of this training, and I'll try and keep on my topic. So as we progress, we become, we get trained up in hearing, we get trained up in reading, we make nice association with other devotees. Nectar instructions being taught at the moment here, which is wonderful, and I know everyone's very enlivened. There's about 50 or 60 people coming to hear it. It's very important. These instructions in Nectar instruction are so wonderful. So then we get some enthusiasm. That's one of the, as well as confidence. Then as we progress in enthusiasm, our desire becomes enthused also, which is the keynote of everything. Everything comes from desire. So then, again, we can start doing some dovetailing. We may have a certain nature, and then we can dovetail that. Our leaders may notice a particular nature, and they may engage us in that way. And on the other hand, it may just be that you do the needful, and you don't get to dovetail, but because you've got that sincere desire to serve. I'm sorry, everyone's so far away, can't look at everybody at the same time. So then you do the needful also. And then after some time, you start to get a sense of what's maybe blocking you. And we're in this stage of anatta nivritti. So, when you first come, you often get a kind of special mercy from Krishna, Come to the temple, everybody's dancing, jumping up and down. I joined the temple the first day I went there. I had to try and persuade my temple president at the time, Dayananda Prabhu, to let me stay. And he said, well, usually you visit for a week or two before you join. But he was so kind, I'm very indebted to him. He allowed me to stay. And you get that first taste of prasadam and devotee association. But then gradually through the training you become a little aware that you're not quite there yet. And there are a lot of things that you have to work on. So that becomes part of our daily practice, a kind of reflective practice, which we need to keep up, I think, our whole devotional life, to be reflecting on what's actually happening, that we're not just being wound up to learn things off by heart or to be able to, appear to be good or, that's why I don't often give the Bhagavatam class, because I don't have it all down, So I prefer to speak in a small group about what's happening in our spiritual lives and developing a reflective practice. But there's a place for both, isn't there? So we have to do both. We have to know what's in Prabhupada's books. We have to repeat the knowledge, and we have to give our realizations of what we've learnt, and we have to reflect on what we've learnt, and we also have to see where we're falling short. And then you have to think, well, what needs to be done when I'm falling short? So this is where you can get tripped up and get overwhelmed with fear, or feel a little ashamed of yourself and think, I'm not doing very well. And sometimes devotees get discouraged that they're not doing as well as they'd like to. And I think that's a point where you can really develop a practice of praying. Because we have such wonderful examples of prayer. Like I mentioned, Srila Narottam Das. Prabhupada said we should learn to pray from the Vaishnava's prayers. And then you can always open your heart, and in your own private moments, sometimes when you really want to overcome something and you don't feel you're making progress, that's the time when you can call out to Krishna and you can say, well, I feel you can say, in your own words, my dear Lord, I can't do this. Please, can you help me? Please help me. And that is in line with Vaishnava prayer. Because sometimes you may feel you're up against something very difficult. Because as you're boiling, Prabhupada used the example, boiling down the milk. Can you hear? Am I in the right place? When you're boiling down, like if you're making ghee, all the impurities come to the surface. So that's when these kind of dirty things in the heart come to the surface. And then you have to turn to Krishna. Because Krishna says that he's the one who's dwelling within your heart, and he is the one who takes away the dirty things. Vidunoti suhrit satam, Krishna says. Vidunoti is actually an instrument, it's like a musical instrument, and it's used, I think my husband may have given this example here before, it's one of his favorites, but when they're threshing the wheat, to get rid of the chaff, of all the unwanted things, because there's so many dirty things in the wheat. They have these sheds, and they have this big instrument that's called a vidunoti. They have smaller ones that they use to clean mattresses, but they have this big instrument, and it goes from one side of the shed to another, and then they twang it. And as they twang it, everything's moving, and all the dirty things fall to the bottom, and there's like a kind of net that they fall through. It's like wire, and all the little bits of chaff fall through, and you're left, sorry, it's not the wheat, it's the cotton, and then you're left with all the cotton buds. So this is an example, vidunoti is the example of sound vibration, how it cleans everything from within the heart. So we've got Krishna in the instructions of the spiritual master. We're chanting Hare Krishna, we're hearing from the Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting go together, and repeating the instructions, and preaching is also chanting. And Prabhupada said that chanting to somebody else is very, very, very potent, as well as chanting yourself. So hearing and chanting and giving somebody else that knowledge, that is Maha Vidunoti. So there's I think I'm just going to tell you some of these verses I read, because time goes fast. I can't say everything I was thinking, but there were these three verses, and I was reading so many lectures that Prabhupada mentions this verse, Yare Deka Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh, which is an amazing verse because he mentions it in so many lectures about preaching. And it's just amazing how Prabhupada repeats verses over and over again because he's emphasizing them so much, because that's the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. So that's our instruction. Everybody, whether it's a spiritual, Prabhupada gives the example, whether it's in your own home and you become spiritual master to your wife, your children, or your other relatives, or to people in your neighborhood, that is becoming a spiritual master. And we all have that instruction. You go out on book distribution, you are giving the instruction. You're acting in the role of an instructing spiritual master. There are different kinds of spiritual master. There's a spiritual master who instructs someone when they first come to Krishna consciousness, first contact, where you have to be very adaptable and meet someone just where they are and get a somehow supercell may give you an intuitive sense of where that person is situated and how you can help them to approach Krishna consciousness. It might mean you're not giving them this verse in the Bhagavatam or your highest realization, but really your highest realization is you're a servant of Krishna, and in the mission of Lord Chaitanya, we're sharing that with everybody we meet. Everywhere we go, everyone we meet, tell them about Krishna. So this principle of Prabhupada said some very interesting things about this. Yari, again, this instruction. Yari deka tari kaha Krishna Upadesh. Then Prabhupada says, and he's referring to Lord Chaitanya, every one of you can become a guru. He says that. Amara agyaya guru hanatara aidesh. He means, Prabhupada saying, Lord Chaitanya says that. Wherever you are, you can deliver the surrounding persons in your neighborhood. How can I become guru? I have no qualification. No, there is no need of qualification. Simply repeat, Yare deka tare kaha Krishna Upadesh. Very simple thing. Anyone you meet, my dear friend, just hear little. What is that? Now, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You kindly think of Krishna. Bas, your guru duty is finished. Just tell someone something about Krishna. And Prabhupada said about Shamsundar Prabhu's little girl Saraswati, see, she is telling everybody, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she is guru. So this whole idea of guru is just about telling people about Krishna. And Prabhupada says again here, this is the mission. Yari deka tare kaha Krishna Upadesh. This is the mission. What Krishna says, you just preach. You become spiritual master. And Prabhupada says over and over again, he says everybody, father, mother, girl, boy, husband, wife, you all become spiritual master. So this is nothing to do with some kind of political thing. That's a distraction, really, if we think of it like that. It actually means acting on the order of spiritual master, on the order of the spiritual master, on the order of Lord Chaitanya, and telling everyone about Krishna. That's all. It's as simple as that. And Prabhupada says, as another way, another example he gives. My dear friend, my dear brother, you surrender to Krishna. If you just say that, it means you become spiritual master. You go door to door, no other talks, simply say, my dear friend, you are very nice, you are very learned. And Prabhupada said that was adopted by Prabodhananda Saraswati Maharaj. So that's our preaching. And then Prabhupada says here, where is it? Anyway, Prabhupada says, everyone here. So I hope that all of you, he said this in London, a lecture in London. So I hope that all of you, men, women, boys and girls, become spiritual master and follow this principle. Spiritual master, simply, sincerely follow the principles and speak to the general public. Then Krishna immediately becomes your favorite. Actually, Krishna does not become your favorite, you become Krishna's favorite. One who is doing this humble service of preaching work, Krishna consciousness, nobody is dearer than him to me. So if you want to become recognized by Krishna very quickly, you take up this process of becoming spiritual master. Present the Bhagavad Gita as it is, your life is perfect. So Prabhupada says, accept the principle. It's not some kind of argument about, who should be. We're not talking about who's officially initiating. Prabhupada said, don't think about, if you're a big devotee or not. Don't think about how great you are. Just act as spiritual master by repeating what you've heard about Krishna. It's very simple. It's a simple principle. So stick to the principle. But I thought I'd mention it because Prabhupada calls it the doubtless and fearless path, Lord Chaitanya's mission. And that's, so first time you may go on the street, you may feel a little afraid. In London, we had a really nice start. We'd go on Harinam every day and give out magazines. And it was so blissful. Our cheeks were aching, just take this, take this, take this. And so it's an easy way to start. And then there's so many ways that you can meet people. You could go to the greengrocer. But for many years, I didn't get married till I was quite already in my 30s, and then our first service when we were married was our wedding present was to go to London Temple and serve the devotees and the deities, so we were still kind of, we lived like 2 minutes walk away, so we were kind of practically still in the temple. And then eventually, that wasn't our service anymore. And then we were living somewhere not very near the temple. And that was absolutely terrifying. That was, And then, the local greengrocer, we made friends with him, the people next door. It was a very kind of low-class area. And he thought, how are we going to preach to these people? But Krishna always makes an arrangement. And there's no such thing as fear once you start sharing Krishna consciousness with other people. So you can have a chat with the greengrocer, you can make friends with your neighbors. That's what Prabhupada says. That become a guru wherever you are or however Krishna arranges it. However Krishna arranges it. Prabhupada wanted everybody to do this. Official, unofficial. And if, at one time, none of us were initiated, then we became initiated. Everything comes in time. Krishna is time. Whatever Krishna wants will come. And then, I remember when we got our Gayatri mantra, We had our Fire in Trafalgar Square at Nelson's Column. And then we went in to see Srila Prabhupada, and he gave the Gayatri personally, one by one to us. So, Prabhupada gave us, when it was time, Prabhupada gave what was necessary. And we have to have faith in that. As our movement goes on, everything will come and everything will mature. Anyway, I just want to quickly say something about Janavamata, because that's what made me thinking about everyone becoming a spiritual master. What's the time? Are we over time? And also, it's Sita Devi's appearance day. And what a powerful personality, Srimati Sita Devi. But even she was such a powerful person who's famous for her chastity. Prabhupada said, even if a woman is powerful, she must be protected. And when Ram went away, then a demon came, Ravana came and kidnapped her. So that's the reason that ladies should be protected. But it doesn't mean they can't preach and act as Prabhupada wanted us to. It just means protection should be there. And also that principle, we'll just speak about this quickly because to honor Sita Devi, that principle of chastity and faithfulness, it doesn't just apply to ladies, because we all have to be chaste to our spiritual master, and we all have to be chaste to Prabhupada's mission and chaste to Lord Chaitanya's instructions. So chastity and faithfulness are for everybody, but specifically Prabhupada referred to Sita as chastity as a woman and her faithfulness to Lord Ram. And what are we being protected from? Sita was alone in that grove and calling out for Lord Ram, and he came and he saved her, he came and protected her. So where there's fear, we think, who will save me? Who will protect me? And then we come to Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, which was one of the other verses that Prabhupada was quoting very, very often. Krishna says, I will protect you. You surrender to me, I will protect you. Do not fear. That protection is always there for all of us if we follow these instructions. Now I want to just quickly have a little bit of time to read something very quick about Janavamata Devi, because I wanted to glorify her, which is the only reason I wanted to do this class, and I've only left a little bit of time now. So it would be nice if we had more bhajans of Narottam Das. We were thinking maybe to try and make one day a month where we depth those beautiful bhajans, and a small group maybe. But Narottam Das, he left home at an early age and went to look for Lord Chaitanya and associates in Vrindavan. And eventually, after being initiated by Sri Lokanath Maharaj, he came back to Katori, his hometown, where the king, his father, was, and who sponsored him, gave him all facility to build a wonderful temple where deities were installed. And for that deity installation, Srila Narottam Das invited all the great Vaishnavas, and all the devotees from Bengal came. And one of the chief devotees there was Lord Nityananda's consort, Srimati Janava Devi. So I just wanted to read this little bit where the guests are coming. And then they see the boat with Srimati Janavamata in it. As the boat carrying Ma Janava and her entourage neared the shore, everyone rushed to greet them. The air was filled with unrestrained joy. This is, by the way, this is from Sitala's book on Narottam Das, and it's like, it's almost like a play, because she's setting the scene for this wonderful pastime. So you can see it like a creative presentation. But it's sort. She read all the descriptions. I was with her in Vrindavan many years ago. It's probably 30 years ago. We sit on the roof and chant, and she was doing her research for this book. So the turnout was beyond his grandest expectations. Practically all Mahaprabhu's associates and their disciples, children and children's children had come. There hadn't been such a gathering of exalted souls like this since Mahaprabhu's time. As the boat carrying Ma Janava and her entourage neared the shore, everyone rushed to greet them. The air was filled with unrestrained joy. Some devotees waded into the water to garland the newcomers, while others dabbed cooling sandalwood paste on the guests' forehead. The entire riverbank was alive with excitement. Some devotees were locked in loving embraces, while others lay flat in the sand offering obeisances. Laughter, joyful crying, and loud shouts of Hari Bol, Jai Nitai, and Jai Gauranga filled the air. Catching sight of Srimati Janavamata, Narottam, Srinivas, and the other devotees fell flat, offering Dandabat obeisances to the revered wife of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Smiling brightly, Srimati Janavamata stepped onto the shore, followed by her son Virabhadra. Narottam, hands folded, approached her. Ketori is now blessed by your association, he said with great humility. We could not miss such an opportunity, Janavamata said graciously. It's Mahaprabhu's desire that we come together to glorify him. So the first thing they did was fix up Janavamata's place where she'd be staying, fix up her quarters. And she was very, very pleased. And she said, Narottam, you have created a most extraordinary environment here. And he said, Narottam says, all this has been arranged by the mercy and expert guidance of Srinivasacharya. He passed it on to his companion, the worship. So then it was, yes, they showed Janavamata to her lodgings first. And that, I don't want to be late finishing. What's the time? Pardon? 8:52. Oh, so we are a bit late. Supposed to finish by now? Yeah. So there was a wonderful deity installation, and at that deity installation, Panchatattva appeared, and everybody saw them. And so that's the promise of the future, isn't it? Just keep on this path, following the footsteps of the great acharyas and all the great devotees. Janavamata was the life and soul of the devotees, especially after Lord Nityananda left. And many disciples, many people took shelter of her lotus feet. The description of some of the people on the boat with her, great Vaishnavas, not just ladies. They didn't really have a problem with it in those days. So I think it's time to finish. But if we could I'd just like to just remember those verses. Yari Deka, that one. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Chaitanya as they are given in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. And I was also reading about Vaisheshika, who's a wonderful, wonderful book distributor, and Vyasaki, who's a great kirtan leader. They were on the library party that were traveling around India. And they went to an area where Prabhupada had distributed books. And then when they came back, Vyasaki told Srila Prabhupada about that. And Prabhupada was so pleased. And he said that, he repeated this instruction to Vyasaki, wherever you go, whoever you meet, tell them about Krishna. So I think that's the crux of it, for fearlessness and getting out of material anxiety. At the end of the day is sharing amongst ourselves Krishna consciousness, repeating what we've heard, and going out there and helping others. We're servants. Spiritual master doesn't mean I've made it now, I'm really cool. And if you think that that's your qualification, that you one day be some official spiritual master, but right now become a spiritual master and share in a servant master. That even in the corporate world, when they're training people, they're trying to imbibe that concept of servant master. And Prabhupada always presented himself in that way. Even Prabhupada was on the highest platform. He would always hold back any symptom of ecstasy. He would always be humble, and like that example before where he said, I'm praying that I may never fall down. And even with his disciples, like Vishaka wrote a paper once, and she was explaining that when she got initiated, Srila Prabhupada said to her, so Jean Prabhu, your name is Vishaka. And so these things are actually principles. It's not about a politic, about what if we should, can we think of ladies like that? Or it's not about what you say, it's not about an agenda, it's about consciousness and what we're here for. We're here to give what we've been given, and that's what Prabhupada calls a spiritual master, and to share with others. And we're here to respect each other, all respect each other. And that was the only reason why Prabhupada told us in our early days, we have to see everyone as our spiritual master, and we all called each other Prabhu. It wasn't a takeover bid or anything. So it's always the principle that's important. And I pray that we can all serve nicely together, respect each other, and encourage each other to go out. And I'm so enlivened by the fact that the Nectar instruction class is going on and so many people are coming and getting enthused. And that's all you have to do, is to share the instructions that Srila Prabhupada's given us. And nectar of instruction, it is nectar. It is nectar to hear, it's nectar to repeat, and then your heart becomes filled with joy. As Srila Prabhupada says in the most confidential knowledge, he says that we become joyful when we hear this knowledge, when we share this knowledge.